Aether Storm spoilers have started to hit the floodgates and the race is on. But that also means that players are turning their attention away from other Magic the Gathering sets, and that includes Tarkir Dragonstorm. And in today's video, we're going to talk about 5 dragons that you should be buying. Tarkir. They have dragon storms. Dragons are literally born out of these storms. And if you weren't here in 2014 when Tarkir first came around, well, we have a lot to cover in today's video that you're not going to want to miss. Welcome back, everyone. MTG Moxman here. Thanks again for hanging out with me on my channel today. And yeah, in case you guys didn't know much about Tarkir, it's a place that is tied to Ugin the Spirit Dragon. And because he is kind of tied to that plane of existence, he helped form it and create it. The dragons there aren't like birthed. They are created out of dragon storms, dragon tempests that come along, and these things come out fully formed and ready to rock and roll. They all have their own motivations, their own way of doing things, but they fall into these 5 clans. And if you weren't around for Tarkir back then, there was like 5 human clans, and there was like an alternate timeline, and then the dragons came back, but now it's a whole new thing. So they're calling this one Dragonstorm, right? But what we really are mentioning is the fact that Ugin is monitoring the imprisonment of Bolas. And they called this Tarkir Dragonstorm because the kind of synopsis is, would the storms continue if Ugin wasn't there? If he's not around to keep these things going? And apparently it's not only happening, it's happening a lot more crazy-like and a lot more out of control. And that leads us as players to understand the chances are we're going to get some very big dragons. We're going to get a boost to Dragon Tribal inside Commander. Casual. We're going to see new dragons of every type coming out there and probably a whole bunch of multicolored dragons, which means there's a good opportunity here to pick up some dragons that you may have forgotten about. Some dragons that may be on the sidelines for a while that you just didn't care to think about until this exact moment when you watch this video. So let's take a look at a few of these dragons. Now, the first dragon I think we need to talk about is the Dragon. Yeah, it's been reprinted, but if you've noticed that monthly change in this card, you'll notice it's starting to uptick. Players are paying attention and purchases are starting to be made. Now, is this dragon worthy of buying right now? Well, it's less than $30, and this card used to be a $90 card. So where are we at when we take a look at the Dragon? Yeah, he costs a lot. He's a 10/10, but just like we like with Markov, he's got eminence. As long as the Dragon is in the command zone or on the battlefield, other dragon spells cost 1 less to cast. Whenever 1 or more dragons you control attack, draw that many cards, and then you may put a permanent card from among them onto the battlefield. This guy is less than $30 still. The question would be, do you think he is going to drop below 30, or is he going to climb above 30 in the next few weeks to the next few months? After Aether Drift really gets going and after the pre-release is over, people will turn their attention to cards like this. If you're thinking about building in dragons, this is a keynote piece you are going to need, and it's less than $30, so keep an eye out for it. You also may find different versions that cost even less. Don't forget, it's been reprinted. Just not that many times yet. So the value is holding. Now our next card, Adventures in Forgotten Realms, Tiamat. I have mentioned this card several times. It is sub $10 for the base copy. There are some much more beautiful copies you may choose to get into. But when you take a look at Tiamat, you recognize the greatness. Yes, it's a 5 color. It has 2 extra. So that 7 looks like a steep thing, but it has flying. And when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you search your library for up to 5 dragons. Okay, 5. They just got to have different names. And then you put them onto the battlefield. That means if somebody kills this commander and it goes back to the command zone and yeah, you pay 9, you get to go looking for 5 more dragons. It can get really insane really quick depending on how you're going to utilize it. But the idea that this is less than $10, and yeah, it has started to climb. It's only a 50-cent change, but let's not forget that it's less than $10 to buy the card right now. The other version I think is like $16 for the fancy full art kind of shaded artwork one. I should have put an image up here. I'm sorry about that, but it is an amazing card to get. This one here is very affordable as well for anybody who's building with dragons. You don't want to miss out on cards like this before they go back up to like 15 to $18, or If they give us some giant, huge types of dragons with crazy abilities, which is what they're kind of suggesting from the storyline, yeah, you might want to get some of these things out of the way to save yourself the hassle. Or if you've always wanted to build a dragon tribal, these are key component pieces you're going to have to buy anyway. Now, for our next card, we're taking a look at the Dragon Lord Atarka. Now, this one has been around for a while, okay? This is Dragons of Tarkir. It's only a $5 card. It hasn't had any change yet, but I want to share something with you here that most people are going to forget. It's from Tarkir, don't forget. 8/8 for 7, Flying Trample. But when the Dragon Lord enters the battlefield, it deals 5 damage, divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers your opponents control. He is a mini board wipe that can take care of selective targets. If you can find ways to ping him and bounce him back and forth, you've got 5 damage every turn that is just sucker punching opponents' creatures and planeswalkers, keeping things in check until bigger and badder dragons come onto the battlefield. The fact this is less than $5 should make it a target on your approach for dragons. It makes perfect sense to me. It's an amazing card. Now, our next card, Terror of the Peaks. Now, this is around again. We got this in Thunder Junction, but let's take a look at what we got with the Terror of the Peaks here. The Terror of the Peaks is $18.95. It is playable in multiple formats, and it is a desirable card. So what are we getting? Well, it's a 5 casting cost, 5/4 with flying, but spells your opponents cast that target the Terror of the Peaks cost an additional 3 life to cast, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Terror of the Peaks deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target. So if you have this guy out, you cast a 9/9 dragon, you get what I'm saying. You're going to deal 9 damage to some other opponent, some other creature, some other target of your choice. It is a variable. It is a variable you can't ignore, and yeah, it has a more expensive price tag, but you get a lot more bang for your buck, and because it's played in multiple formats, chances are the price is not really going to go down. It has a chance to go up because it's not coming around again in Dragonstorm, but it will be a used card for sure in Standard as well as Commander. Now, the next one I want to share with you guys is Nicobolas the Ravager. Again, one of those cards that started to have a lot of sales starting to pick up in the last little while that it's worth noticing. Yep, only a 50-cent increase right now, but let's take a closer look at what we're getting for our $17. Yeah, you're getting a 4/4 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. Amazing for Commander, a little bit of discard to get him out there. But if you pay 7, you can exile Nicobolas the Ravager and then turn him to the battlefield transformed. When he transforms, guys, this is where things can get fun, because now you got a planeswalker out there. I love the idea that you could have this guy hitting targets, flip over into a planeswalker when you need him or if you're in control, and really start drawing cards and doing crazy things. He's an amazing card. I remember it being like 50, 60 bucks, and now he's dirt cheap, okay? Less than $20 makes him a prime grab. All right, the last one we need to talk about today is the Murktide Regent. This card is from Modern Horizons 2. It's $13.12. It's a very good price for what you're getting. Great bang for your buck. But other players, again, have started to notice, and we're seeing a little bit of an inroad in the price. It jumped up about 50 cents in the last month, but the closer we get to Dragonstorm, the more dragons we start to see, spoilers, visuals, you're going to have more interest, which is why you got to get ahead of the curve and not be caught behind the 8 ball when things are going badly. Now, the Murktide Regent is one of the best commanders you can use for dragons. It's crazy to have around or just in your deck. It's a 3/3. It's wimpy. I get it. 7 to cast. Seems ridiculous. It has Delve. Each card you exile from your graveyard makes casting this cost 1 less. So you can get him out really cheap. Now, it has flying, and the Murktide Regent enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each instant and sorcery card exiled with it. And whenever an instant or sorcery card leaves your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on the Murktide Regent. You see how big this can get and how disgustingly fast a card like this can powerhouse its way through, not to mention combinations with the card. So when you've looked at all these dragons today, when I've shared with you 5 top dragons to get together for your commander deck, these aren't all in standard, of course. They're not. I did a standard video talking about the 5 cards you should buy that are going to be in standard. But when we look at this as a commander and as a field of play, many of these cards are underpriced right now, in my opinion. They are a great grab for anyone who's going to be building a dragon tribal. And we know we have history of seeing what happens when we have players who see new vampires, new merfolk, new dwarves, new rabbits. Come on, we know what happens. Players get super excited. They get super stoked. Everyone gets on board and starts buying these things. The last thing you want to have happen is go into some bidding war as the supply gets kind of choked up for a little while and you can't find the cards. Or you're paying top dollar, way more than you anticipated originally when you heard or saw this video. And then 6 to 8, 12 weeks from now, you're sitting there going, card costs too much right now, I'm going to have to wait. You can get in at the ground floor and say, is it worth it right now? You can hope it goes down further in price. Nobody knows what the market's going to do. But what we see in the early days of any new pre-release for sets, prices go up, cards get caught up with speculation, people buy things. Aether Drift is going to take the shine off for a while. Even if it's not the most fantastic set, people will keep their eyeballs on it. Innistrad Remastered didn't have that appeal because we knew all the cards existed. Aether Drift has new card mechanics, new visuals to look at. And that means Tarkir, Dragonstorm, nobody's going to be looking right now. The eyes are averted. All you have to do is decide, is there anything you actually want to get now before it gets crazy? Thanks again for hanging out with me today on the channel. A reminder, you can watch my Tarkir video of the top 5 cards to buy if you're going to be playing Standard. Take a look at that video. Some great stuff in there. Thanks a lot for hanging out. Hope you enjoyed the video today. And a reminder, if you enjoyed the content, to like and subscribe to my channel. I do put out new stuff every single day. And I will see you guys tomorrow, of course, with another video. Go have some fun. Play some Magic. I know I'm going to. Hey guys, a big shout out and thank you to my fantastic patrons, to the people who hang out with me every day on the channel. Have a good time, man. Thanks for giving the videos a thumbs up, giving it a view, and having a good time with me by dropping some comments in the comment section. To my patrons, to my YouTube membership members, and the regular viewers who tune in every day, thanks again for supporting. This is a great adventure, and I'll see you tomorrow. Well, welcome back. I see you got your backstage pass on. It gives you front row access to the Mox Man. All right, guys. This is the Ramble Jamble. Ramble and the Jamble. So, what are we talking about today? We're talking about dragons. It's one of the beginning elements of this game, Magic the Gathering. It's at a time when we had fetch lands in Standard. We're going back to Tarkir. And the reason I bring emphasis to this set is I think there's going to be something going on. Something that most people aren't going to be thinking about when they're looking at Aether, whatever that is. Speed bike racing, Hot Wheels. You know what? There are some good cards. I don't mind the mechanics. The visuals are driving me insane. I'm going to have a hard time with all the way through. This is my section. I'm going to say what I want to say about this stuff. So it's like, it just drives me nuts. You can't turn my mind away from how it looks, okay? Reminds me of like biker mice on Mars and stuff. It reminds me of oh god, just all kinds of stuff from the 80s, like Scooby-Doo adventure type stuff. Jason the Wheeled Warriors, right? Like, I don't know, all of it. Which you think I'd be more positive about, but it just doesn't feel right. So I'm not into it. When we look at the dragons are a beginning point in Magic the Gathering. Tarkir has a pretty good following of people who remember it well. Okay. Between that and Fate Reforged, it was pretty cool to go there. Now we have a chance to go back. And because of how they've written the story, I'm expecting to see some pretty bomb dragons, some pretty big things, which will boost the sales in Commander. It will boost things. Now, we don't know what those dragon Commander decks would look like. I think there will be one human and one dragon is my best guess, right? Because it's kind of how it was before. I think they would do something like that again if that's the two kind of opposing clans on the planet. But I think they'll expose a little bit more of the story. I think they'll broaden out the story to include Ugin at some point, or some vision of Ugin, something that'll start bringing him back. And this could be the storyline that starts off bringing back Bolas. I'm not going to say that's happening, but I can see how my mind would play things out, and that's where I'm going with this. Now, I don't know if I'm going to mark this video to remind myself that I said all this. Maybe one of you guys can do it, but I just have that feeling that this might be something. So I don't want people missing out. If you're thinking about building a dragon tribal, most of these dragons are pretty cheap. They're not going to cost a lot of money to get them all right now. But a few months from now, we've seen what's happened in the past with a whole bunch of cards. I'll probably try to look at some reserve list cards that may affect in with dragons and work as well, just in case. Anyway, thanks again for hanging out. Thanks for being here. I'm going to bring my knees up, get the steps in. No, not really. I'm just trying to be positive. I'll see you guys soon. Ramble jamble.